All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming in here and joining our non-plenary breakout session. We're happy to have you. And we have a very great panel. I'm excited about this. We had a panel prep call last week, and basically what you'll learn today is going to cover the gamut of consumer engagement strategies, both individual, one-on-one, and more automated big picture and everything in between. And I'm leaving time for Q&A so that we can make sure and get all of your questions answered and have a really robust meeting here this morning. The idea is to have a classroom style debate, so we do not have slides. We have very few notes even. So we'll be going from our understanding, our memory, our expertise as professionals in various parts of this sector. So I'd like to start by introducing our panel. I'm going to introduce them all at once, and then they will each speak to you for about 5 minutes with their perspective and views on how to engage consumers and what the future is going to bring to the stakeholder community and electric utility industry. So I'll start with Jessica. Jessica Lennard is head of corporate affairs at Ozone Energy. She's from the UK, so she might get the gold star for traveling the farthest. Jessica's head of corporate affairs at one of UK's leading challenger brands in the energy retail space, Ozone Energy. She has previously headed up energy and environment campaigns for the Conservative Party and managed the energy lobbying practices of 2 major UK consultancies. Next is Matt Duesterberg, co-founder and CEO of Ohmconnect. Matt, Ohmconnect is a platform that harnesses event-driven notifications as a method to engage users frequently and with a purpose. Ohmconnect makes it very simple for users to provide grid services, either by manually turning off their washing machine or allowing Ohmconnect to automatically control Wi-Fi thermostats, for example. Their user base has spawned out of community efforts to allocate resources more effectively. Next is Abhay, Gupta, CEO and co-founder of Bidgely. Bidgely is Hindi for electricity, and its mission is to accomplish energy efficiency at a massive scale. Bidgely is a SaaS, which means software as a solution, based solution, gives insight into what's using electricity in the consumer's home to help consumers then achieve their lifestyle and energy goals. Next, we have Matthew. We have a Matt and a Matthew. We will not get that confused. Matthew is CEO of EcoFactor, and he comes to EcoFactor with more than 15 years of experience in energy management, utility, and related industries. Prior to EcoFactor, Matthew served as Vice President of Sales at Bidgely. Uh-oh. And they're buddies. Matthew also served as Vice President of Sales at Lennard, where he led various sales teams worldwide, so you can see he has a lot of experience. So throw him your hardest questions. And then Jennifer Pulliam, a Senior Director at TXU Solutions, TXU Energy. Jennifer is Senior Director there, leading a team of professionals dedicated to providing residential and commercial customers with products and services that enable them to protect and control their environments, easily connect with other homes and businesses and business service providers, and conserve energy. Prior to her current role, Jennifer was Director of Products and Innovation, responsible for the complete portfolio of electricity plans, products, and services. Previously, she worked at various strategy positions at Energy Future Holdings, TXU Energy's parent company. And I am Patty Durand. I'm the Director of the Smart Grid Consumer Collaborative. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that is focused on researching and understanding consumers' awareness, preferences, favorability, and interest in energy technology programs and services, and sharing that information back out to all of you, the stakeholder community, so that we in the stakeholder community can reduce conjecture and hypothesis about what consumers want and actually know what they want from credible, foundational-based research with a very high confidence interval. So I'll be sharing some of our findings with you at the end of our discussion before we open it up to Q&A. But first, I'd like to throw it open to Jennifer to talk to you about Jessica, to talk to you about what she would like.
Get it out of the way.
Yeah. We agreed I would mess up and it would be funny. Okay, Jessica.
Hi there, good morning. Just wanted to give you guys a very brief background on the situation in the UK so that everything that I'm about to say about consumer engagement actually makes sense. So we're trying to tackle three major policy challenges at the moment: decarbonisation of our economy, energy security, so bolstering capacity. We currently have this kind of huge, old, centralised utility model system and it's falling apart. And then the third problem we have is rising costs. So domestic bills in the UK have more than doubled in the last 10 years, and you can imagine how consumers feel about that, of course. So this is a huge time of transition for us, and we really need consumer buy-in, more than ever, and unfortunately we don't have it. What we have instead is what's being called a crisis of trust in the UK energy industry. So tons of global polls out there that you can have a look at. A recent survey by Miles Shop Edelman found that the UK energy industry was the second least trusted in the world. And that's a consistent fact, unfortunately. So we desperately need consumers on side. A couple of reasons for that, obviously. First of all, because they're the ones who are going to be paying for a lot of this transformation. So it's absolutely necessary that they feel that that this is of benefit to them. But also because in terms of behavioural change and simple a democratic mandate, we need them on side because these are big changes which are going to fundamentally affect their lives. And at the moment, as I said, we don't have that. Now, the reason why this trust issue has become so difficult is because it's coming out sideways and really damaging the industry. And you can see it in all sorts of ways. So, for example, we've got a massive problem right now with planning in the UK. You can't get onshore energy development built. Consumers just are not having any of it. They hear all this stuff about growing the green economy, they understand it's meant to create benefit for them, they don't see the benefit of that, and this NIMBYism phenomenon is extremely widespread, and it's really jeopardising our ability to build new capacity. You also see it in terms of a massive consumer backlash against renewable subsidies. Politicians are absolutely against the wall on this one. We're supposedly a very pro-renewables country, and yet consumers all over the place are absolutely furious about the impact of renewables as they see it on their bills. So don't forget, those are the bills that are going up. And then the third problem, of course, is to do with competition. So we've historically, for the last 20 years, we've had 6 large dominant players in the UK market, and bills have gone up, their profits have gone up, and consumers are extremely angry, and we now have, for the first time ever in the UK energy industry, a Competition Commission inquiry into the so-called Big Six, which could absolutely tear apart the market. So you can see all of this is not good for consumers, but it's fundamentally also damaging the ability of the UK energy industry to get anything done at a time where we urgently need to. There's been a lot of argument about whether you could just regulate. Look, forget trying to engage with consumers, it's too tough, it's too difficult, let's just regulate for all of this. But actually, if the central problem has been that the market structure has been such that consumers have been essentially excluded from participating. The business model of the large utilities is essentially passive, disengaged consumers, big power stations, other end of the wire, you pay your bills. If it's that we're trying to crack, then more regulation just perpetuates the problem. We've absolutely got to get to a place where we have empowered consumers, prosumers, who feel that they're benefiting from the changes in the energy industry, that they're interested and engaged and they understand. So, so just a couple of things. There are people far more qualified than me on this panel to talk about the technology angle of all of this, so I'm going to let them do that. But just 3 short comments from my perspective as one of the independent retailers in the UK industry. First thing is around how you talk to customers and how you market yourself as a utility. So we feel very strongly at OVO that we should be thinking like a great retail brand first, and a technology company second, and only as a distant third a utility. There's absolutely no benefit to customers of us behaving like, they are just the balancing mechanism for our power stations. We've got to actually treat them as a customer the same way that great retail brands treat their customers, and that means redesigning the whole customer experience from scratch, making sure that the customer is at the heart of everything you do. The second thing is a phenomenon which I'm hugely excited about in the UK. It's kind of becoming more widespread across Europe, but it's like wildfire in Britain right now, which is community energy. And so there's a broad definition of this. So we mean both generation and supply, actually, so both local generation projects and local supply projects. And these are not microgen, these are actually kind of community scale projects. It can be generation, it can be supply, it can be energy efficiency, collective purchasing, heat networks. These are springing up all over the place, and the models are extremely diverse. You can have joint ownership with one of the utilities or a developer, and that means that actually you end up perhaps resolving some of those planning problems. If it's not full joint ownership, it could be the community actually owns it themselves, Or it could be a system of community benefits where you receive a share of the dividends. So not community benefit in terms of a developer turns up and builds a new school, but actually a real profit share system. And this means that basically communities are starting to feel, A, that they can trust these local sources. We did when we were launching, just last week, we launched the UK's first local energy supplier since the 40s. And the reason that we thought that would be successful is because all the polling we did on trust shows that people trust local sources far, far more than they trust things that they consider big and remote. So local energy suppliers and local marketing. And of course, you know the needs of local people much better if you do that. Secondly, it's all about seeing the actual benefit for yourself. That could be financial, it could be in terms of growing a rural economy, local energy economies. People actually see and feel the benefit of those far, far more than they do. They just hear the big power stations being built down the road. And the final thing is just around financial product. So you're not going to get everybody wanting to be an empowered, engaged consumer. It's just, unfortunately, it's not realistic. But we have found that everybody loves a good deal when they see one. So this is basically taken shape in the form of a huge increase in crowdfunding across the UK. Everyone is extremely excited about crowdfunding, and you now see companies like Abundance and Trillion are doing multi-million-pound deals, and you have, say, 10,000 people plus investing as little as £5 sterling each in these projects. But the ROI is 7%, and we're making absolutely nothing right now on other investment vehicles, as a consumer. So these things are starting to look like really good investments, and you capture a whole base of people who perhaps they don't care that it's green. Perhaps they like it, but it's not their central motivation. They're investing because it's a good deal. And that's hugely, hugely powerful because these are the same people being asked to pay for the green economy. So finally they start to see some personal benefit and investment in it.
Thanks, Jessica. I just want to follow up on one point there. The community aspect, I really see that is going to be the linchpin to get consumers engaged going forward. You can just imagine if you go to a consumer and say, hey, turn down your electricity because you're going to save the planet or make the grid less strained, all of that. That's a little abstract, kind of ephemeral, right? But if you say, hey, there's a power plant 8 miles down the road, that power plant's about to turn on, and we got 10,000 people here about to turn down. You should join us. All of a sudden, you've got this collaborative cause, right? And the actions that they take can create a reductionable difference. And prosumers, as Jessica mentioned, love this, right? And we've seen it kind of a little bit different in California. It is in their backyard. Take the EV, take the solar kind of movement. You've got people putting solar panels on the north sides of their house, not the south-facing side, because it's closer to the road. So people want their neighbors to see that they're solar generators. And it's not just individuals, right? It's companies, it's cities and schools, and that's where kind of Ohmconnect is seeing a lot of traction. So we got one program that does 1 kilowatt hour saved is equal to 1 kilowatt hour of community solar installed. So if you reduce 1 kilowatt hour on the Ohmconnect platform, there's 1 kilowatt hour installed by our partner company of community solar. Maybe I should back up a second and tell you a little bit about Ohmconnect. Ohmconnect empowers users to reduce their electricity 1 or 2 times a week during an Ohm-hour event, a hashtag Ohm-hour event. These are just energy reduction events. So Ohmconnect educates the consumer on why there's a time value of energy, informs them when to reduce, and then pays them to actually reduce. So as you might imagine, we've got droves of data on why people are reducing, what's the incentive, and what we see kind of consistently is that there's an immediate actionable thing to do, consumers will do it. If I tell you all to kind of reduce at 1 p.m. today, I'd say most people would forget by 1 p.m. But if I say, hey, turn down right now, unplug your laptops, turn down some lights, turn off your AC, we're seeing much higher engagement rates, on the order of 75%. And it's that kind of immediate actionable demand or action that gets people engaged, because it's a very low barrier to entry. It's just kind of a seed to get people to do something. And we don't prescribe what people need to do. We get kind of stories told to us. We let them decide how to take action. So we hear people saying, oh, we dined by candlelight in the dark during an Ohm hour, or we went for a walk during an Ohm hour. We've got a mom whose daughters run around turning off all the lights, and the daughters are incentivized because their allowance is tied to the Ohm rewards. So we see that kind of that seed to get people to do that first action. And what we see is that once we've provided that seed, we can give them feedback, which is the hook that gets them engaged. So if you reduce, and you usually use 2 kilowatts for a given hour, and you reduce to 1.3 kilowatts, we send you an email saying, hey, great job. You reduced 0.7 kilowatts. And then the thousands of users around you reduced as well to keep that power plant from coming on. There's that actionable feedback right there. And then on top of that, we say, hey, we'll pay you 50 cents for doing that. And that value, even though it's not much, it shows them that they're actually doing something real. It's doing something valuable for the grid. And eventually people continue to reduce and reduce, and they'll think, hey, let's automate this. And the rest of the panel has a lot more experience than I do on the automation side, but I think that's where it's going. We've connected to Wi-Fi thermostats, electric cars, etc. So I think the 2 points I want to make is, one, it's education of the consumers, why they're reducing, give them kind of a tangible benefit for doing that, and 2, it's rewarding them for doing that.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everyone. So let me start by telling a little bit about Bidgely, what it does, and then I think everything Matt said here is just right on the dot. Give some examples from real life, from what we see with projects with people. So Bidgely is, we started as a technology company, and our goal was to exploit all the information in the data that's from smart meters. We have about 55 million smart meters in just US alone, and about a little over 200 million smart meters across the world. And when we started 4 years back, we saw that there was no real value derived out of the data, except that data was used for billing purposes, and so many millions of meters were producing this data. So that's how we started. And our goal, we identified a technology of disaggregation, where without putting sensors in the house, we would identify what's happening in the house at different appliances, when is your AC running, when is your pool pump running, dry running. And when we started as a technology company, we didn't know the challenge of consumer behavior or consumer engagement. We thought we will solve this problem, and just like your bank bills and credit card bills are itemized, your energy bill will be itemized, and that will be the ideal world. We realized after the first year, and we rolled out the first version of the solution about 3 years back, and we realized consumer engagement is hard. Consumer behavior, it's a stubborn thing. You cannot change it easily. Even if you put the information out there, people have been used to not caring about energy because in past they had no information, they couldn't do anything. And so changing consumer behavior is hard. And what we have learned over the last few years is 3 things. Some of these go back to what Matt was talking about. Timely, contextual, and relevant. So timely is exactly like what Matt said. We will tell you, change something at 1 o'clock, people forget. Because there's so many things to do. People are busy in their lives, there are far more interesting things to do. Even if they have time, they'll spend their time on Facebook rather than thinking about energy. I would watch my friends' pictures on Facebook rather than thinking about, 20 cents or 50 cents of energy I would save in the next hour if I do something. So timely is important, where can you tell people right now what is happening, can you do this now? They will do it. But if you tell them do it tomorrow, they'll forget about it. So what's important there, access to real-time energy data helps a lot. States like Texas, California, UK, they're all going in the direction of complete real-time access. In fact, if I know correctly, UK has even mandated putting an in-home display device, which they call a CAT device.
Interestingly, though, because of the lack of consumer trust, we're not allowed currently to take half-hourly data from those meters. And so that's exactly the barrier. And the
interesting part in UK, if I know, is that the retailer, like Jessica and the company, has to pay the distribution company to get the hourly data, which is extremely expensive. So they find getting real-time data easier, and that's interesting, right? Because real-time data is now timely. I can tell you right now you are consuming 5 kilowatts, and if you don't know where it's going, you will do something about it. So timely is very important, and real-time is helping that a lot. Contextual, do you just tell people you're using 5 kilowatt right now? What do I do about it? I don't know what to do about it. So if I say you are running your dryer, or your outdoor light is running right now when you're going to bed, I can do something about it. So putting this, making it contextual in terms of like what's happening right now, and relevant goes on the same theme, just not giving people statistical information, your zip code and your city is consuming this much. That doesn't make any sense to me. I want to know what's happening in my house. So what we've learned and what we're still learning is bringing information right in the time when people can take an action, something which is personalized to me. Your heater is running, your light is running right now, and making it in the context helps a lot in changing consumer behavior. What we saw in one of the recent projects, in fact, we would be announcing that information today. We did a pilot with PG&E last year, and we found 7.7% savings when we gave all of these things in real time. So this is where about 800 devices are put in the field, and there's a lot of learning came out. So we got 7.7% savings, which is fantastic, because compared to 2%, 1.5% from the old methods, this is fantastic, but we learned a lot. And what my biggest learning was what I call out of sight, out of mind. Even though people were very excited and we got this great savings, from the focus groups, we learned that people didn't come to see this stuff more than once a week after the first few weeks of engagement. So after the first few weeks, when people were excited, they used it, and after that, it fell to like, a couple of times a week at most. Not very good. So out of sight, out of mind, people, it's not in their sight, it's not in their mind. And so some of the techniques to take care of those things are, let's get into mobile push notifications. People don't have to come to the solutions. You can be part of their life. When something is happening in their life, just push it out on their mobile, they access, and then they get that information in real time and they act on it. So there's a lot of learning from different places on how to engage consumers, and happy to share some of them.
Good morning. In case you forgot for a second that we are in a small industry, I tried to recruit Matt to Bidgely when I worked for Abhay, which was right before we did a deal with Jennifer.
I feel so left out.
I agree. Yes,
We'll get you in, don't worry.
yes, nice to meet you. I imagine that you guys will probably merge sometime soon. But I was hoping to get a pulse from the audience. Who are you? So, are there any utilities, folks who work for utilities in the audience? Okay, great. FYI, you do a poor job of consumer engagement. Are there energy retailers? Got it. Regulators or policymakers? Not a one. Consultants? Okay. And anybody else? All three. Great. The media, yes. Okay, great. That helps, thanks. EcoFactor has been around since 2010, and we were formed in order to try to optimize the way you heat and cool your house. We do it through developing software that we inject into thermostats in order to make them smart, connected thermostats. I was attracted to EcoFactor because I sort of turned the clock back, and I started with Enernoc in 2004. And at the time, demand response was a very nascent industry, and you had about 0% of commercial industrial load enrolled in a demand response program. In fact, PJM, which is the largest electric grid in the world, didn't even have a formal demand response program back in 2004. Enernoc helped start it, and today there's 14% of the peak load of PJM is enrolled in a demand response program through commercial industrial customers. It's a huge number, and essentially what that means is demand response has become a real resource. But no one has figured out great solutions on the residential side. And so I went to work for Abhay because I got very excited about the fact that here was a technology and a company that I thought could have a large impact on the residential side. We still haven't completely solved the problem and don't have the level of success helping residential customers the way that commercial industrial customers have been helped. So there's huge opportunity here. And we're all trying to figure out how to engage consumers and attract consumers to the various energy savings programs and solutions that we offer. I think my argument would be, I think utilities are best positioned as poles and wires companies, and with very few exceptions, If you look at their marketing, or you look at the success of their programs, or you look at the cost effectiveness of their programs, retailers do a much better job of getting consumers engaged, and it speaks to their core business. It speaks to what they're actually good at. I live in San Francisco, and in one of 5 million PG&E customers. PG&E has had smart meters for years. They talk a lot about engaging their consumers, and I still receive 2 flyers twice a year. So 4 times a year I receive a flyer that one of them is about low income, and one of them is about direct low control air conditioning programs. And publicly available databases show that I'm probably not eligible for a low income program. And common sense shows that I'm not available for a direct low control air conditioning program, since I live in San Francisco where it's never above 67 degrees. And as a result, I feel like my utility doesn't know me. And so when if I were to get a call from Solar City, if I were to get a call from folks who now definitely compete with the utilities of the world, I'm more likely to take it because I have no connection, with the actual utility. And I've come to think that utilities need to, by and large, sort of get out of the way and let other folks who are professionals at consumer engagement engage consumers.
I don't want to get out of the way. We as TH, well, that's right, we're not a utility. We're a retail electricity provider in the great state of Texas. And when you think about our market, our market structure is patterned after the UK, though I'm happy to report things don't appear to be falling apart just yet. We totally empathize with some of the challenges, and we're discussing some of those a little earlier. I think from our perspective, we have a really great forum to debate and discuss policy issues. But at the end of the day, my customers can vote with their feet. If you call us by 5, you can be switched that night from an electricity perspective. That's a tough gig, right? And Texas is a very robust market in terms of people moving in and around the state. So when you look at the data for ERCOT, the competitive market, you see that over 20% of people change in some way. They either move or they switch in a given year, every single year. So the whole market's turning over every few years effectively at that rate. So it's a very, very fast-paced environment, and I have to find a way to differentiate myself from 50 other competitors in the marketplace offering over 200 different rate plans on any given day. How does anybody who wants to spend less than 10 seconds thinking about electricity in a given day figure out which of 200 plans is right for them? That's where we can come in. So it's not just about plans, and actually my role at TXU Energy these days is to look for how to change the model that we use to engage customers, in the sense that we want to use the trust that we have established over many, many decades and help engage customers and help them understand what else we can do for them in their energy ecosystem. It's not just about electricity. It's about, if you want renewable, if you want distributed generation in the form of solar, if you want home warranty plans, if you want to control your thermostat, all of those things are things that we want to be able to help provide for you and do on behalf of you. I don't expect to change your level of involvement as a consumer. You don't want to spend any time thinking about electricity. You don't have the time. People are making so many decisions in a given day. We've seen research that shows that 50% of people feel they have too many decisions to make in one given day, and it's more than 10. Our lives continue to get increasingly connected, which is helpful. We want to create an integrated experience that allows us to do on behalf of you all the things that you're willing to let us, and let you know what's happening, but at the same time be able to protect the things that run on electricity, to control the things that use electricity, and to manage your life more effectively. It's about convenience, and it's about engagement, not in the sense of actively making choices and spending time, but it's about engagement in terms of the value that I can offer to you and give you a good deal at the same time to help you save money. So I think I'll stop there, because there are probably a lot of different questions and a lot of different places that we can take the conversation. But we're very, very excited that technology is finally here to enable this very seamless and convenient experience that we can offer to our customers so that we don't get displaced by other providers and other retail opportunities.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. All right, so who's out there? And I don't mean among you in this room. I mean consumers out in the United States. That's the work that we do, is to understand the U.S. residential consumer base. And what we've identified we do a rigorous study every year with a 95% confidence interval on the findings, very statistically significant findings about who's out there, what consumers think and what they want, and what their preferences are. There was misinformation spread a couple of years ago from a study that Accenture did that said consumers only think about energy 6 minutes a year. That actually is incorrect. That study actually said consumers think about their electricity bill 6 minutes a year. Your electricity bill is very different from energy, and Accenture has tried hard to fix that misimpression and that misinformation that is still being spread at conferences among energy professionals. But we know from our research that consumers do care about energy. Not everyone does. Consumers have different values and attitudes about energy. We have created what we call a segmentation framework, or a set of 5 distinct categories that consumers fall into in regards to their values and attitudes about energy. And about 20% of consumers fall into the green category, which means they care about energy from the perspective of environmental concerns, a desire to increase renewable energy on the grid, a reduction in carbon emissions and global warming is important to them, and the ability to have rooftop solar on their house is very interesting to them, among other findings, but they fall into that category. Those consumers will answer questions like, for instance, do you use a green cleaning product in your home? Have you contacted your elected representative about something related to the environment? And they will say yes to more than 3 of those types of questions, and that puts them in that category. And then we have a segment of what we call savings seekers, and obviously from its name, those are the consumers that don't care so much about green energy, but do care a lot about how to save money on their bill, how to find efficiency in their house, and how to take control of their spending. And then we have a group called technology cautious, which means they're interested in smart grid benefits and energy services, but they're not sure that technology is going to benefit them in any way. And then we have movers and shakers. That segment is interested in all things that energy technology can do for them. They're interested in automation, they're interested in time varying rates, they're just interested in technology and they think it's really neat. And they're what we generally refer to as low-hanging fruit, or more ready to be approached and engaged than many of the others. And then the last segment is status quo. When we talk to them, the quote we give them is, leave us alone, we're fine. And one of the issues that we have as a nonprofit studying and researching consumers is that last segment is often the one that industry insiders lead with, and yet they're only 1 of 5 and they're a minority in terms of size. There are many consumers that don't care about energy or just want to think about it for 6 seconds or whatever some people think, but there are many more that do care. And we don't know of any research that shows they don't. Our research shows that they do. It's done by a professional firm. And what we've seen from certain utilities across the country that have are showing leadership in this space is that consumers will enroll or will engage on energy products and services if the program is designed right, if it's marketed well, and as Matthew said, electric utilities have done a bad job of that. But that's not out of malice, it's not nefarious, it's just that there's never been data before. There's never been a need to engage consumers before now. And now we're here, now the time is at hand, and so we have to figure out how to do that, because there's no way these technology investments are going to return the value that they could and should to consumers if they're not engaged in more energy programs and services that we all want them to be and the vast majority of them want to have. Let me, I want to poll the audience for a second. How many of you have heard of the New York Rev proceeding, the Renewable Reforming Energy Vision? So about 50% of you. Okay, so 50% haven't. So I want to transition a little bit now to asking the panel questions and seeing if the panelists want to ask each other questions, and then having you all ask us questions. And the reason I asked about New York Rev is I want to start by asking Jessica, have you heard of New York Rev? No, it's not to be embarrassed. Most, many haven't. But what it is, it's a proceeding the New York State Public Service Commission has adopted that says they're going to reform the entire New York State, the way the entire state of New York delivers electricity to consumers, so that consumers are empowered around energy and so that the retail market is animated. And by animated, they mean active, that consumers are active. And I mean residential retail market. And right now, across the country, with the exception of maybe Texas is different in many ways, always. The rest of the country, the market is pretty dead. It's not active. Consumers don't have choice. If they do, they're not choosing. And it's very quiet. And the New York proceeding attempts to create what's called a DSP, a distributed service platform, or a DSPP, distributed service platform provider, which is a whole new level of retail capability so that New York consumers can engage around the energy products and services they want. And what we've seen from utilities in a leadership position is if the program's designed right, if the program provides something back to the consumer like control or power or renewables or technology, they will enroll. And we've seen some programs with a 50% enrollment rate. So first, let me transition to seeing, do you have questions for each other? I'll give the microphone. If anybody else does, I'll give it away.
I'll ask a question. I think we spend a lot of time looking at trying to understand our customers. We do consultative selling. We identify customers via personas so that we know who we're talking to and what their needs are so that we can adequately identify the right programs that we want to engage them on. Not every program is right for everybody. So I'm curious from the panel's perspective about their approach to segmentation and the analytics that they use to do that.
I can jump in here. So I think we use Mosaic. I'm sure that's something you guys use as well. We have a customer insights team obviously internally, and they do surveys pretty much every day. But Mosaic is our kind of major customer segmentation system. I think one of the big problems actually is that the type of customer that we're most concerned about as a retailer is obviously the vulnerable customer base. And these are people who are, we're talking about financial, social deprivation, talking about the elderly, we're talking about people who don't have a laptop and they're not watching the news every night and, they're not thinking about switching all the time. I meant to say, by the way, in the UK it takes 6 weeks to switch. And 22% of people give up through the switching process because it's too complicated. And that's if you can understand your bills and you don't think all energy suppliers are the same anyway, which apparently 62% of people do. So we really need to get more like Texas. But yeah, so our problem really is that we can do the segmentation, but then the tools for reaching that group that we're really the most concerned about, that's really hard because they are the most disengaged. And all of the kind of more modern channels that are around empowerment and particularly the digital stuff, you can't reach. So I guess that's, it's a problem. Once you've identified them, then they're harder to reach group as well.
I'll jump in here. So I don't think we definitely don't have as much data as Abhay has from Bidgely because they've got 7-second data and stuff. But we've got some interesting feedback from our users on what programs they really like from a demand response perspective. So we've rolled out different programs like lotteries or loss aversion. So in the lotteries, we say you won't actually earn any cash during this OMR event if you reduce, but you'll be entered into a pool, and instead of winning $1, you might win 30 or 40. That's really been targeted in high-risk users. We're seeing people who want these kind of risky challenges to participate in that. From the loss aversion standpoint, we actually see that a lot in the low-income users. So we preload their points, say we'll give you $5 up front for the next month to reduce during each of these events. And if they don't reduce, if they actually use more, they lose points, and people get furious about it. It's like 50 cents here we're taking away from them, and they'll be like, we did everything, and my wife left the washing machine on, or something like that. And we're like, well, that's not, you'll have to play with the rules, but they get extremely engaged in that aspect. So
I think you guys have added all the things, so I just pass on.
Okay. Well, let's open it up and see what we have out in the audience. Any questions? Yes, sir, in the back.
I'd like to ask a question, and I haven't dealt with your specific REP, so if I sound critical, it's not aimed specifically at you. I'm a very educated customer, and I've had almost no contact from REPs, period. And I've dealt with 4 or 5 of them. I change every 6 months. I'll admit it, I change every 6 months. Not because I want to, but because I can get a better deal and I like the better program. I went through a very complicated process this last time where I got different prices. It was very difficult to compare prices. We talk about energy to choose, some other program and some other program. The prices are different on them. They're different through which one you go through. Now, as a customer, that's unacceptable. I mean, it's hard to figure out what to do. And then you talk about how you do some advanced things, like the DER, but more like the solar. There's really only one REP that really does anything related to the solar, rooftop solar stuff. And its program is not all that competitive. I don't understand how in the Texas market, the way it's organized, we get the progressive things that can be done for the customer, for the utility, for the industry. I don't understand how we get those into the REP programs, which are only interested in, some sort of marketing gimmick that turns out to get Joe, whatever his name, that looks for 3 minutes to get a product, and looks at whether they have an NRG on the stadium sign. I don't know how you move that, and that's an industry challenge overall, and it's exacerbated, I think, in Houston because of the way, or in Texas because of the way the market is structured.
So I think that there are going to continue to be challenges in the market and how it evolves. The intention was to let competition work itself out for the most part, and that various retailers have the opportunity to provide a lot of different types of products and services to customers in the way that they think they can most effectively compete. There are very few, and I believe TXU Energy is one of them, that really offers customers a lot of choice. We're very transparent. We believe we offer a superior service, and we will never be the lowest cost provider in the marketplace on average, because we believe in the service model that customers should come to expect from their electricity provider. We want to be transparent. We want to make sure you understand the rates that you're on and the products and services that we can offer you. And we've seen a lot of people come back that have gone away because they don't get the service. It isn't easy. It's not clear. They do get bill shocks because people change their rates and they didn't understand the fine print in their terms and conditions of their contract. So I think the customers need to continue to become more educated. I think we could help you. We do have very competitive rates and short terms for people who want that, but we also offer a different value proposition. We changed the market with free nights. It was a totally different value proposition to customers, and it has been wildly successful for us for the last 3 years. That's just one example of the different types of value propositions that we offer in our rate plans and our program and product structure. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of creating the right incentives for retailers to participate, but retailers don't get any credit in the market for providing a lot of programs, and they don't have the rate base and the energy efficiency cost recovery factor to apply against it that the utilities do.
Okay,
And that creates some challenges.
I've got a question there, and then 2 questions on the front row, but let's start with you in the back.
Ms. Pulliam, what is TXU's current customer count? How does that compare to what it was at the time of the bankruptcy? And what are the challenges you faced as far as keeping customers from leaving with the promotions that some of your peers are offering to get them to come over? And as you talked about the turnover during your prepared remarks earlier.
So I think we have, from a residential perspective, I'll give you that, we have about 1.5 million residential customers. And that really is not very changed from the when we entered the restructuring period. We are operating better than we ever have as a company, and we are seeing really, really positive trends from my perspective in terms of customer retention. We have all types of different programs and opportunities. We've instituted lots of continued innovation in the way we treat customers to really fine-tune the customer experience on an individual and personalized basis. We're very excited. I think the restructuring from our perspective is not something that we think a lot about. There are a lot of people that are paid a lot of money to spend time thinking about how to restructure the balance sheet, but ultimately that's like refinancing a mortgage from our perspective. Our job one is to take care of customers day in and day out, and that's been the complete focus of our company, and there's been no distraction. So,
You're saying the customer count is flat in 2 periods?
So you can look at our publicly available data to understand what the specific count
Yeah,
numbers
let's
are.
not get too specific in it.
But I'm telling you that
For this panel.
that from my perspective, in terms of what we're seeing in the call center day in and day out and online, customers are not switching because of our restructuring proceeding.
Yes, sir, in the white shirt. Yes, sir.
Actually, I have 2 questions, and the first one's for you, moderator. You mentioned that the coffee classes that you have, the green are 20%. Can you give us just a little rundown of the other classes, the percentages?
Oh, yeah,
If you remember, otherwise you can calculate.
I think they're right here, actually. Yeah. Okay, so green champions, that part of the word. Oh, I said 20, it's 30 actually, sorry about that. Green champions, 30%. This is just being released today in my defense. So this is brand new data, hot off the press, and and I haven't totally learned it. Status quo is 18%. Technology cautious is 17%. Savings seekers is 20%. And movers and shakers is 15%.
This is nationwide.
Nationwide, yes, sir. And of course, these percentages will be different in different areas of the country, but they will be present in all areas.
Perfect. Now, the question is for the panel. It's a broad question that where do you guys see yourselves in 5 to 7 years from now? And I'm assuming that all you will be feeling very successful. What it needs to take you from where you are today to be that success that you aim. So what are the changes that the system needs to have, or the world needs to have, I would say, to get you to the successful position that I'm sure you are already in?
And let me just ask the panel just to be sure that so we can get to another question or two and not close out the time to limit your vision to less than 2 minutes.
You got it. So I see the world as a 2x2 matrix, where on the left-hand side of the x-axis is the word behavioral, and on the right-hand side is the word automated. And up top on the y is the word whole house, and on the bottom is the word thermostat. And so Abhay started his company at the intersection of the word behavioral and whole house. So he offers behavioral whole house solutions. EcoFactor is at the exact opposite quadrant. It's at the intersection of automated and thermostat. So we automate your thermostat so that you don't have to do the work. I get a bunch of savings from what I do. Abhay gets a bunch of savings in consumer engagement from what he does. Ultimately, I think in order for us to be maximally successful, you got to sort of work at the center, which is you have to provide consumers insight into their entire house. You have to do a bunch of the work for them so that they don't have to think about it. When you do all this stuff, you get maximum cost effectiveness, maximum engagement. Your entire house becomes an asset essentially. So that's where we are going.
So I see that Matt has moved on from Bidgely, but he's not gotten out of his habit of selling Bidgely solutions. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. So our vision is, look, we see obviously utilities as lagging behind the service providers where, let's think about it, if I have to buy solar or if I have to buy an electric vehicle example, I don't think of my utility or probably my retailer today. I just go to Google and search and I find and contact people, or somebody contacts me, which is happening more and more often. Where we want to take or help utilities is to position them as at par with other service providers, where you as a consumer are going to make the decision of something that big related to your energy, about solar and EV, right within the framework of the utility. We want you to be using the utility app and that telling you what is the impact of buying solar, getting solar in my house. Or if I bought an EV, is that going to make my dryer more expensive? And your utility and retail providers are in the best position because they have all the data. So we want to take the world to a point where people are making these decisions within their utilities framework.
So I think for at least Ohmconnect, I think a lot of the future relies on competition through regulatory processes. So at least in California, and the New York Rev as well, there's a lot of movement towards opening markets to third parties to access and provide services. So I think that is a key for the future of Ohmconnect.
Thanks. I think for us it's all about breaking the dominance of the big vertically integrated utility retailers in the UK. We need a thriving, diverse retail sector with real competition, and we need regulation to relax. So we need to improve consumer trust so that we can relax the regulation, which currently is extremely burdensome, because it's only then that we can start actually putting out the innovative programs and new products and services, which at the moment utility retailers aren't even trusted to do in the UK.
Okay, great. Yes, sir.
Quick clarification, two things. One, you've left out the brokers. The electricity brokers in Texas are the ones that can deal with the consumers directly and interface with TXU and the rest of the retail electric providers to try to get the best deal for the actual consumer. We also do consulting and sales, but then we apply that to all the retail electric providers. Secondly, in Texas, one doesn't deal with the utilities unless you're in a regulated area, munis or co-ops. So they go through TXU if that's who they have the contract with, to have any changes made to their utilities. So don't deal with the utilities unless you're dealing with munis and ops. You need to be dealing with the rest if you want to sell your products or programs. My question is that, you take a quick example, is in Austin, everybody got real excited about solar and is real excited about solar. There was a program for the municipal utility where you basically got credits. Okay, those credits change every year. So the solar people are out there selling a payback based on a certain number of years, which are based on prices that change, or credits that change. Same thing happens with the utility, the reps, for instance. Their bills, prices change, and maybe even more importantly, those transmission and distribution utilities prices are going up, where the point that they're more than retail electric providers. So how do you make these programs, sort of related to his question, flexible for this ever-changing market? You can't go out and tell somebody, get this app, because guess what? It's going to change tomorrow. Secondly, one real quick thing is most people forget those transmission distribution charges when they put together the apps. They compare the per kilowatt hour charges, and that's not the charge that you need to compare. You need to compare the whole thing. Sorry.
Let me just ask one panelist to answer that question. Should that be Jennifer or Abhay? Jennifer?
Great.
So it's complicated.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to have to get smarter in terms of working together. We routinely work with a group of cross-functional and different partners and partnerships to try to make sure that the algorithms that we're developing are flexible, that the pricing is clear and transparent. The business markets environment, which sounds like you're focused on, certainly brokers are an important part of that. We're going to continue that dialogue and try to understand that they compete more on energy charge versus the wires charges. But we try to be very disclosive. I don't think it's a short answer. I think it's going to be something that we have to continue to make sure that the technology that we're using enables us to do the right thing for customers so that we can all effectively serve them.
Yeah, maybe you guys can talk on the break. Yeah.
The transparency is really important too, that TXU and the rest of the retail electric providers let everybody know that what you got today ain't going to work tomorrow.
Okay, yes, in the back.
So as storage is becoming, storage as an appliance, with all sorts of integrated home solutions regarding that, What do you think the impact of that is going to be as the price continues to drop on that? And, because I work in the solar, I'm a solar installer, and we do a lot of battery backup systems, even some off-grid systems. And so integrating that into our business models for consumers, we're getting asked about that every day. And thank God we have got a lot of good experience in that, but, you know, like the Solar Power International show in Vegas in October, there had to be 7 or 8 really elegant solutions that were, you know, in beautiful cases and cabinets that, you know, providing anywhere from 3 to 15 kilowatt hours worth of backup storage. Wired correctly, you know, utility doesn't even need to know the customer has that. And if they're going to be charged a surcharge, or the value of solar that Austin Energy gives them drops, at some point the customer says, they're my kilowatt hours, and I'm keeping them. And I'll use them as I see fit. How do you think that all fits into your business model?
Is that for TXU or for the panel?
For anyone,
Abhay or Matthew?
every element, I would imagine.
Abhay or Matthew? Abhay?
So the 15-second answer is storage isn't here yet, but it's coming and it's going to figure in. I think we as a retailer see an opportunity down the road to look at supply optimization opportunities for customers. Nobody wants to figure out when should I store, when should I discharge, when should I use that for my EV versus when should I store with my solar panel, what rate plan should I be on. We have an opportunity down the road to help facilitate and enable that experience for customers without them having to do a lot of work.
I'm surprised how fast it's coming. I thought it was, I've been telling customers it's 18, 24 months away, let's set you up so we can add that. And they want it now, and they're willing to pay for it now. There's a lack of trust in the rate structure, and they want to be prepared.
What percentage of customers do you think will have any sort of battery storage in 2 years?
What's that?
What percentage of customers do you think will have any sort of battery storage in 2 years?
It'll be like, I think, any other technology, where the early adopters will be a good, strong percentage of that. But it depends on what rates are.
Definitely be sub 5%. There's no question it'll be sub 5%.
Well, it really depends. If you know, companies like CFPS in San Antonio start instituting charges to customers that have solar, they'll separate their solar and their storage system from their regular connection to the utility and have that as a whole separate system that runs part or some of the loads in their house. So it really depends on what the utilities do, because customers are watching this like a hawk.
I guess my point is, we try to, I think, focus on helping utilities and retailers deal with the 99%, and this at least, we want to future-proof our business, of course, in there, but at least for the next 2 years, this is a 1% problem.
It does seem a little bit like a niche because of the cost right now, but anyway, let's see, there was another, yes ma'am.
I was wondering how you see some of the technologies you're working on right now extending to engage the mid-market and C&I markets, because it seems like we've focused a lot on the residential market right now, but I'm interested in consumer engagement in some of those bigger markets.
Yeah, from my perspective, there's lots of solutions for the larger commercial industrial folks, and then there's burgeoning solutions for the residential folks, and it's the SMB folks who get a little bit left out. So we certainly are working on a solution, and I think this guy is too.
Right. So I think CNI, like Matthew said in this case, Matthew, this CNI market has always been vibrant in terms of available options because that has been a big market, and there's been enough providers creating solutions like a knock for CNI market. And also CNI decision-making process is very different from behavior. It's a logical decision-making process which is based on dollars. You have a dedicated building manager whose job is to optimize energy. It's not about behavior, it's about job, which is very different from consumers. We pay $2,000 extra to get that color on the car right now. That's not logical. So consumers are not logical, and therefore behavior changes are hard. CNI is simple. You put the right equation in front of the decision maker, and it's easier to move the guy. So,
which is why we have a whole panel just on consumer engagement. All right, well, please join me in thanking the panel. You've been a great audience. Please thank you.